Welcome back to the Tracy Take. Today, Ryan and I, we will be doing our first mock draft for the 2022 NFL offseason, and we couldn't be more excited, especially coming back off our little off-season break. As you guys can tell that we haven't put a video out in a week, so we appreciate you guys being patient with us as we needed our own little vacation recovery going into the new season. So Ryan and I, we couldn't be more excited for this. We are trying to get to 400 subscribers by the NFL draft, which is at the end of April. So if you have not already subscribing, we would be greatly appreciated. Like this channel, comment on this video, let us know your thoughts on some of our picks and who we think is going to be drafted where, and share this with your friends. And Ryan, let's get into it. So as I said, we are doing the first mock draft, and how this is going to work out is Ryan is going to pick all of the odd numbers since his Patriots team is picking in an odd number, and my Falcons team is picking on an even number, so I will be picking all the even numbers, and we'll be going off of from there. So Ryan, you're on the clock with Jacksonville. Who is going to be picked first overall?
Well, I have to go with my gut here, and I just don't think that they're going to re-sign Cam Robinson, their left tackle. And with that being said, I'm going to take Evan Neal. He's a guy that has played both left and right tackle at a very high level in college football. He's 6'7", 350 pounds. He's a monster. He's a plug-and-play left tackle. And then if they don't re-sign Cam Robinson, they can go after guys like Chandler Jones or other defensive free agents like J.C. Jackson to possibly kind of bolster up that defense and go a different route than re-signing Cam Robinson and possibly taking an edge rusher with the first overall pick. So I think Evan Neal is the guy that's going to go first overall.
And you know what? I do like that pick, especially then also I think they have Jacksonville does have $71 million in estimated cap space, and that was as a little bit ago, depending on how they do some restructuring. I think Evan Neal is a great pick just in general, even if they do sign Cam Robinson, because they do have the cap space, and then if you have Evan Neal on the right side, they, as we said, when healthy, they have one of the best interior offensive lines. Adding Evan Neal is going to be a great help, and then you have some versatility there. I don't think they can go wrong with that pick either way. Now moving on to the second pick, it's going to be the Detroit Lions, who honestly, all things considered, had a pretty solid year. They were a really fun team to watch. And now with the second pick, I think offensively, there are some things that they could add, yes, but I think defensively is really where they're going to need to add some adjustments. And it was so close, and so I'm going to, as of now, stick with the hometown story, take Aiden Hutchinson, who is the Michigan Wolverine, staying in Michigan. I think, well, just one in general, I think he'd be a great fit and also be a great addition to that team.
Yeah, no, I love that pick. I personally think he is the most versatile pass rusher in this draft, and he's a guy, like a hardworking, blue-collar work ethic type of guy. That I think will come in and make an instant impact, and that's what they need in Detroit, is guys that can come in and play from day one. So, I think that's a great pick. Coming in at number 3, there's another edge rusher that I think can come in and make an instant impact, and that's Kayvon Thibodeau. And for me, he's just the best player available, and I think that's what Houston needs. I think they're at that point in a rebuild stage where they really just need to add players that can make an impact, and I think Kayvon Thibodeau is that guy. So
I like that one. Yeah, it's Houston needs borderline everything. So just taking best player available. I think when it comes down to that point, I think it'd be something that they would need to have. So the Jets are picking fourth, one of their 2 first-round picks here within the top 10 also. So they really addressed the offensive side of the ball last draft, and I think it paid off tremendously, and I think it's only going to keep paying off with all the people that they added. This draft, I think, is very clear that they need to address the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary, and I think they're going to go with who they feel is going to be the best cornerback. And so in this scenario here, I'm going to go with Andrew Booth Jr. as a cornerback. I can easily see them going with someone else, with a Derek Stingley Jr., or maybe even going safety with Kyle Hamilton. I mean, I don't think they can go wrong here. But for the sake of this draft, I definitely think they're going secondary, and Andrew Booth Jr. is going to be the guy they pick.
Yeah, and their defense was decent last year. They were very injury prone on the defensive side of the ball. And I just think adding good corner depth here is something that they will not hurt them at all. Andrew Booth Jr. is a guy who's going to measure extremely well in a lot of his physical traits. And while his tape might not be the best corner, it might not show that he's the best corner, I think athletically somebody is going to fall in love with his profile and take him here in the top 10. So, up next is the Giants' first overall pick. And for me, I know that there are a few guys that a lot of people have their eye on. However, there is one for me that I absolutely love, and that is Akim Iguanu out of NC State. And I love his tape because he is violent and he can play just about every position on the offensive line. And I think the Giants would be a team that would really benefit from his versatility. And because they need guards, tackles, like any offensive line help will be very much appreciated up there. And I think Akim Iguanu is a great fit in New York. So,
yeah. Well, they've been dealing with offensive line issues for a long time now, and so just bolstering up that offensive line is something that they need to do. And I think that he's going to be a great addition. Moving on to the sixth team, who also surprisingly had a worse offensive line statistically based off of the PFF rankings than the New York Giants, and that is the Carolina Panthers picking 6th. And they're also going to go offensive line here. There's a couple options that they could go, and personally, I think really sticking, they really need to address the interior offensive line. And I think Kenyon Green will be a great option to play right, left guard. Because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, he played every position in college except center, right? He has that versatility, or am I getting that mixed up with someone?
No, I think that was him. I mean, we can look at this really quick.
He provides them with a lot of versatility. So Taylor Morton is the Panthers' only solid offensive lineman, and that's their right tackle. So if they need someone to play left tackle, he can fill in there. He might be more suited for a guard position, but he could play left guard, right guard. Frankly, anything would be an improvement, and that's really where they need to. If the Panthers want to move forward offensively, they need to address this offensive line.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I feel like a lot of people get caught up on tackles, and I think the tackles positions are the most valuable on the offensive line. But when you have an offense like the Carolina Panthers that strictly kind of runs a lot of its production through the running back and Christian McCaffrey, I think having a powerful guard that you can pull and kind of run some zone blocking schemes with is going to be a very needed add to this squad. So I think Kenyon Green is a great pick here. Up next is the Giants' second pick in the top 10. And there's a guy that's on the board that I just think athletically he can't fall any further than this, and that is Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame. I think he gives great versatility to the back end of this defense. You had James Bradbury, who had a decent season, and then Azeez Ojulari, who was very much a rookie impact player for this Giants defense. And I really think that adding a safety like Kyle Hamilton is going to help this Giants defense kind of regain what it was in 2020 and not 2021.
All right, you good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ryan. With Kyle Hamilton falling that far, with the Giants, I think that they potentially could double up on linemen. That's how bad their offensive line is. But if you're sitting there on the 7th spot, what you can't pass up on Kyle Hamilton there, especially too knowing that a lot of teams behind him would instantly jump up. That is a potential spot I could see them maybe trading back if Kyle Hamilton does fall there and a team really wants him. To go out and get him.
Yeah.
So they could potentially get a couple of draft picks, but that is going to be tough, I think, with Kyle Hamilton being the safety. But great pick, especially then when I'm the Falcons fan myself, talking about my team now, going to number 8. I would love to take Colin Hamilton there. But who they're going to end up picking, who I have, is George Karlaftis, the edge rusher out of Purdue. They were last in sacks in this past season, finishing 32nd. I think that they need to address both lines, both the offensive and defensive lines, and I think just where they're falling right now, I think George Karlaftis would be a better pick for the team than an offensive lineman would be.
Yeah. I mean, I think George Karlaftis is a great addition to that offensive line because he's like 6'3", 275, and he plays really strong and really stout in both the run and pass. So I think he would just be a good addition to that defense because I'm not sure if he has the highest ceiling of like a guy like David Ajabo or Jermaine Johnson, the guy out of Florida State. But I think he's going to come in and make an impact day one, and he's just going to be a really consistent cornerstone in that Atlanta defense. So I really like that pick.
Yeah.
Keeping the trend going here with edge rushers, there's a guy who I really like whose athletic profile is like only one other person in the NFL, in my opinion, and that's DeMarvin Leal. I think DeMarvin Leal and Bradley Chubb in 2 years could be the most formidable pass rushing duo in the NFL. I think DeMarvin Leal athletically is an athletic freak to the like of Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt level. And I just he scares me in the fact that he can just completely take over a game. And I think getting him here at 9 is going to be a steal. And I think getting after the pass rusher in that division where you're going to play Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and then even Derek Carr 6 times a year, I think adding another guy like DeMarvin Leal will be crucial for those teams.
Yeah,
for Denver.
Yeah, Denver's kind of in that spot where I think they're going to take best player available, and then having DeMarvin Leal there only boosting that offensive front. I think it would be a great pick. I'm curious to see. I feel like a lot of Broncos fans might want to see a quarterback taken there, but it's just going to be tough to see. We're going to have to see just more out of the combine here if any of these quarterbacks could be taken there, or if they could take them at the start of the second round as a potential option and get more value there. But moving on to the Jets, their second pick, I'm going to have them doubling up on cornerbacks here. Just with how everything's falling, then they really need to address the secondary. And having Derek Stingley Jr. still available there, I could honestly see them doubling up on cornerback and then just being set on cornerbacks for the next 5 to 7 years. Even if one of these guys doesn't pan out, but one guy does, and that's great. You have a lockdown corner. So I think that's just that big of a need for the Jets, and so I can't pass up on the value.
And honestly, my opinion on both those guys is when they're on the field, they're great. And there's a lot of concerns about Derek Stingley's health in that ankle injury that he suffered. But I really think that is kind of getting a little blown out of proportion. And I think if he makes it here, the Jets are getting a steal. So I really like that pick. And, again, I'm going to keep the corner trend going. At number 11, the biggest weakness on that Washington defense for me was just that they didn't have any really good press corners. And to me, the best press man corner in this class is Ahmad Gardner. He has the length that you want. He has the mentality that you want. And I think he would fit really well into that Washington defense because they have the pass rush. I think Jamin Davis and that linebacking core are improving. And I think they really just need a corner and a good secondary group to kind of accompany that so they can get back to that number one defense that they were in 2020. So
I agree with that. I like it. A lot of cornerbacks coming off here and linemen. And sticking with that trend, moving on to the 12th pick with Minnesota. Tyler Linderbaum, I think, is going to be a great fit here for the Minnesota Vikings. They could go corner here, but just with how everything's been going on, the 3 top cornerbacks and safety are off the board, and I think now this is where Minnesota needs to address the offensive line. And I think Tyler Linderbaum, arguably the best interior lineman in this draft, because he's one of the best centers. I think he would be a great fit for that team, especially because they just need to protect Kirk Cousins and give Dalvin Cook and Anthony Madison some holes to run through.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I love his physicality, and I think he is a plug-and-chug guy. And they just kind of revamped that offensive line last year with Christian Darrisaw, and then who was the guy from Ohio State?
Wyatt Teller?
Wyatt Davis.
Wyatt Davis, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Wyatt Davis. And I think adding one more piece to that young group will provide great dividends here in the future. Up next is the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to break the mold here of defensive linemen and corners, and I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson. I think the Browns need a playmaker out wide. They need to give Baker something in his final year of his rookie contract, and I think Garrett Wilson is that guy. I think he matches up really well with a lot of corners in their division because he can play inside, he can play outside, and I think he matches up well with a lot of the guys that they have on their roster. Because he kind of can do a little bit of everything, whereas I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is specifically an outside wide receiver. Jarvis Landry is specifically a slot receiver. So I think Garrett Wilson fits really well into that mold of what Cleveland wants to do.
Yeah, Cleveland's the first team that I can see, and maybe there's a couple other ones, but where they have one specific need. You know, like even with like the Giants or the Panthers, like obviously the offensive line is the weakest part, but how things fall out, they could address other things. The Browns really, if they can improve their passing game, and some of that does have to do with the health of the quarterback and who's playing quarterback, but they were definitely lacking on the receiver side. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones led the receiving led the team in receiving yards with only like 500 or something like that, or 590 as somewhere in there. So I think Garrett Wilson would be a great addition. Sticking within the AFC North, the Ravens are picking 14th, and similar to Minnesota, how I think if depending on how the draft pans out, I could see them taking cornerback here or somewhere in the secondary. But a lot of the top guys were taken already. So I think they're going to stick with the offensive line because they need to really address that, especially with Ronnie Stanley being hurt all year. I think they're going to take Charles Cross, the offensive tackle. They'd put him in there at right tackle. I think that would be a solid addition to the team. And also he's a solid run blocker as well, which is exactly what the Ravens would need and be looking for because they're definitely more of a run-first team.
Yeah, no. He's in my opinion, the third best tackle available, but he's still a top 15 prospect. And the fact that he made it here, I think, is just because other teams have other needs they need to fill before they really focus on a tackle. So up next is the first of 3 first-round picks for the Philadelphia Eagles. And for this one, I think Philly is really close to being a playoff, like a serious playoff contender, not a first round and out kind of guy. And I think that starts with the linebacking core, and getting a smart linebacker in Devin Lloyd, I think really kind of pushes that defense over the hump because I think they have good talent. And it all just kind of needs to be brought together. And I think adding a nice young piece in the middle of it does that. Yeah,
I agree. That was probably the weakest portion of the team is going to be the linebacking core. And I think that's what they're going to address with that first pick. Especially, and it just kind of fits. It's one of those where you see how everything's playing out. And Devin Lloyd's going to be there. They need a linebacker. I think that's going to be a good fit. Now, they have back-to-back picks, and I think this is kind of like a luxury pick for sure. And so I think they're going to go with something. They're going to stick with their trend of first-round receiver picks. And I think they're going to pick Chris Olave. I think that's going to be a good addition to what they have. Devontae Smith really came into his own in the second half of the season. Dallas Goddard, or Goddard, I think is how you pronounce it, is a solid tight end option. I think if they get one more solid receiver option on the opposite side, that's a lot of weapons you got to pay attention to, especially with how good this team was able to run the ball last year.
Yeah, exactly. I think they had the number 1 running offense. So if you add another guy out wide that you have to cover,
Yeah.
I think that makes this offense top 10 for sure. Up next, I know we've been drafting a lot of big, fast guys, but I'm going to draft a big and fast guy right here for the Los Angeles Chargers. Jordan Davis. I think that the Los Angeles Chargers are a top 10 team in the league if they did not have one of the worst. I say one of the worst. I'm pretty sure it was second worst. But ultimately, that ended up costing them their entire season. And I think they need to do everything this offseason to address it, and that starts with Jordan Davis out of Georgia. The big man, 6'6", 330 pounds, but he's probably going to run around a 5-second 40. Yeah, if not, maybe 360 pounds.
Yeah.
But I think they're willing to overdraft him a little bit. I think he's a top 25 prospect, not necessarily top 20. But I think they're willing to overdraft him a little bit just to ensure that they get him and he can help them with their run defense. So.
Yeah. No, I like that pick. I mean, that was clearly their biggest weakness. And I think getting just a big boy like that, just put him in front of the center, it's going to make it tough for some teams to they're going to just try and make it somewhat tougher to run against them. Moving on to the New Orleans Saints, a lot of different ways they could go here. A lot of people might be expecting a quarterback pick. But I'm going to do something a little bit different. Because no matter who is at quarterback, they're going to need someone to throw to, and they did not really have any receiving weapons last year. So I want to go with a guy, see how he recovers from his ACL injury in the championship game. But Jameson Williams, I think, would be a great fit. He'd be a great fit in any system. But I think the Saints would be getting a steal here this late in the draft. Also, they are going to have serious cap issues. So getting an elite rookie weapon to throw to can help out a lot.
Yeah. I also think, too, this year is going to be a rebuild year for them. I very much doubt that Jameson Williams is going to be back in time to really make an impact on the year. But, again, I think that will also help them with their cap issues and them kind of just getting through this year, let alone like actually being successful this year. So up next is going to be the Eagles' third pick. And I don't think that they come out of this draft without picking a quarterback somewhere. And I'm going to take the first one off the board right here. And I'm going to take Malik Willis. I really liked what he did at the Senior Bowl. I think he really proved that he has elite arm talent. But he is also very shifty in the pocket. And I think he brings a good balance between running and throwing. And I think that's something that Jalen Hurts has not done. And I think Malik Willis can do a lot of what Jalen Hurts is doing, but throw the ball much, much better.
Yeah, this would be an interesting one when we were going over these. This would be an interesting one because I think Malik Willis is going to be the guy that a lot of people are watching. Like, where is he going to be taken in the draft? Because he's starting to come out as getting closer up to the number one quarterback, which is just it's interesting. And just to kind of see where he gets taken. I've seen him be taken in a lot of Atlanta mock drafts, see him get taken up. That's eighth overall. I've seen him fall all the way back to Atlanta in the second round as well. So it's very interesting to see how teams view him, especially then if the Eagles take him. That would be interesting, especially after Jalen Hurts just led them to the playoffs. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. I agree with you. Jalen Hurts' throwing is going to be, I would say, a weakness for that offense. He's going to have to improve on that. Sticking with teams that need quarterbacks, I think Matt Carroll is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler next year. This one just kind of makes sense. Not, I would say the player, but just the positional need. Where we're seeing the quarterbacks and just kind of where they're ranking compared to some of the other players. I think this is a solid spot for Pittsburgh to take quarterback, whether it be Matt Carroll, Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell, Malik Willis, if he's still available. I think they'll go quarterback here and then just start kind of rebuilding around whoever they draft.
Yeah, I am the big proponent of I think you got to build a team and then find your quarterback. But I think in this situation, when you can't really draft a top offensive line guy, even though Trevor Penning is still on the board, I very much think that that is a very good pick, and I think he's a good prospect to
But that's one. It's like just to your point. What's going to be the difference between Trevor Penning and then who they could take in the second round? If they do have a second round pick, I'd have to double check. However, though, all these top quarterbacks might be gone by their second pick. So that's right. It's that balancing act, so to say.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. Up next is my New England Patriots, and I think the AFC Championship game was very revealing about what the New England Patriots need, and I think they need a defensive overhaul. I think they need to revamp the linebacking position, but I think more importantly, they need to get much better at the cornerback position to compete with these receivers that are in our division, and I think Trent McDuffie is the guy to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little small. He's like 5'11", 185, I think. But I think athletically he's going to have a 41.5-inch vertical. He's probably going to run in the low 4.3s. And he just has that instinct that you want in a man corner. And I think he's the perfect fit for New England.
I like it. Yeah, no, I agree. They are, I think, best cornerback available here, unless if it is a steep drop-off, something that they can get in the second round, which they'll probably get another.
Your laundry's done.
Yeah, the laundry is done for all that we're concerned. Moving on to the Raiders, we just mentioned his name, but I think Trevor Penning is going to be taken here. The offensive line with the Raiders is definitely something to be concerned about. A lot of different things I think they could take here. They could take another receiver. Because they've had a year, or they lost their first-round pick from 2 years ago forever. They could also go secondary as well, but I think I think addressing that offensive line, I think is going to be huge because Josh Jacobs, I think, is a solid running back, probably above average, but there's no offensive line really to block for him, so it's hard for him to have his versatility. And I think if they increase that offensive line, I think that Josh Jacobs could be a 1,000-yard rusher. That's not out of the realm of possibility for his talent.
And also, too, I think bringing in Josh McDaniels, he's a very smart, offensive-minded guy. And I think that is going to lead them to a more balanced offensive approach, whereas they had one of the best passing offenses last year, but their running offense was just not where it needed to be for them to really be competitive. So I think that's a very good pick for them. Up next is the Arizona Cardinals. And for me, I think they're going to add a solid piece in Kaiir Elam in the secondary. I think he's a very versatile corner. I think he will be a great piece next to Trayvon Diggs. Sorry, I was looking at the Cowboys. A great piece next to that front seven, which I think is very good. And I just think that's a good fit, and that will round out that defense a little more.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, Arizona's kind of in that same best player available. And so I can maybe see them going with a receiver here, but that's for a different a draft as well. Moving on next to the Cowboys, as you just talked about. Unfortunately, head coach was not an option to draft here. I think that would be a solid option for the Cowboys. But since we're just doing players, Mika Parsons was probably the best pick in the draft last year. With how he panned out and what he brought to that team. Honestly, actually, if it wasn't for Mika Parsons, you could argue that maybe the Cowboys don't make because they would make the playoffs because the NFC East sucks. But I think they're going to give him a running mate. I think David Ajabo, following this far, I think he would work really well in that Dan Quinn system. Mika Parsons is going to attract a lot of attention. So get another guy on the other side of the ball and get Randy Gregory out of there and Mike McCarthy as well. And I think it's going to be a great addition to the team.
No. I really like that pick. He is a force in both the run and the pass. And I think putting him across from Micah Parsons. And then also DeMarcus Lawrence was hurt for a very large majority of the season. And so I think if you have all three of those guys, that would be a very formidable front. So up next is the Buffalo Bills. And I think the Buffalo Bills are in a really good position coming into this draft. And there's a guy that I really think fits well for them, and that is Zion Johnson, the offensive guard out of Boston College. He had a really good Senior Bowl. I think he has the versatility to play both guard spots and the center position. But he is a force on the interior, and I think if the Bills can really get a power running game going, that offense becomes pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah.
Because if you have to play with 7 guys in the box against Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, then you have Dawson Knox. I know Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders are getting older, but Gabriel Davis is still on a rookie contract. It just becomes it becomes a little unfair at this point.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a great piece for them to add.
Yeah. No, I agree with you as well. And it's something that we talked about with Buffalo in their season preview last year, and then also a consistent talking point. And unfortunately, like that wasn't the reason why they didn't win the Super Bowl because they played arguably one of the best football games I've ever seen. And you mentioned Gabriel Davis, who had is going to have one of the most forgettable playoff performances ever, only because his team didn't win.
Yeah.
But his performance there, I mean, they have a solid passing game, but I agree with you. They need to get Devin Singletary more in the mix. I think he's another one, just with how explosive that passing offense is. I think Devin Singletary, maybe not 1,000-yard rusher, but I think he can get close. I think he can get you 800, 900 yards if he didn't already do that this year.
I think he had 800 something.
Okay.
I know Josh Allen was their leading rusher, but Devin Singletary wasn't far
behind. Well, then if that's the case, then if they can become more run-focused, not more run-focused, but just become more balanced and be able to run the ball when they want, he can easily then be a 1,000-yard rusher, only because of how explosive that passing defense is. And I agree exactly with what you're saying. If you have to have 7 guys in the box, that's just, I mean, good luck against that Buffalo team. Moving on now to my current hometown, Nashville, Tennessee, for the Tennessee Titans. A lot of different picks here. I know a lot of people in Nashville are saying we should draft a quarterback. So take that with what you will. I don't agree with that. I do think that offensive line and safety are not safety, secondary are the 2 options. Unfortunately, just at this pick, there's not too many options. There's a couple potential safeties that they could take. But I think addressing the linebacker position and Nakobe Dean sitting there, I think that's too much that you just can't pass up on that. It's not really like they'd be stretching with any offensive line or cornerback position, just that I can see at this point. And I think Nakobe Dean would be a great addition to that linebacking core.
I think that would be very good, especially they are going to lose a few defensive pieces in free agency, and I think he's a guy that can kind of play all over. Up next is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers can go a lot of different ways with this pick, but I think for me there's one specifically that I really think is a good fit, and that is Perrion Winfrey, the defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. One of the big things about this Tampa Bay defense that's been so good is this pass rush, but Ndamukong Suh's getting older, and I think they still have good linebackers and edge rushers, but they might lose some of that presence in the interior, and I think Perrion Winfrey brings a nice young explosion into that category, and he's a very good pass rushing defensive tackle. He had a very good Senior Bowl. He probably played his way into the first round. And I just think that is a very good fit and a very good pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I agree. I don't think they can really go wrong with any pick. Just it's going to be best player available. With Green Bay, that is picking next, though, I think there are some wrong picks, and anything that is not a receiver position I think would be a wrong pick, because you don't know where Devontae Adams is going to be. You don't know where Aaron Rodgers is going to be. And so with Jordan Love, you're going to want to have him some players to throw to. And if I'm just looking at where these players are falling, Treylon Burks, I think, is going to be in that range, and I think Treylon Burks is going to be a great pick for that team. Potentially can develop into the new Devontae Adams that the team will be looking for if they don't re-sign him, which last I heard, Devontae Adams is wanting a pretty penny. So,
No, I think that's a great pick. To me, he's a guy that you don't actually really even need to have an elite quarterback with. He kind of reminds me of like a Deebo Samuel, A.J. Brown. Just get the ball in his hands and let him create. And I think that's where he thrives. Up next is the Miami Dolphins, and I'm going to stick with the receiver theme here. Devontae Parker is getting a little older, but they have a new young guy in Jalen Waddle who is very fast and very quick and plays kind of that slot over the middle guy. For me, I think Drake London is definitely the guy that they should draft if they want to draft the receiver position, because I think he just adds another mix of a threat on the outside that you have to game plan for. He's very good after the catch, and he just has really solid hands, and he's just not something that they currently have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and especially after looking at their stats as well, as we're about to do their season review here in a couple episodes. Adding a receiver, I think as much as they need an offensive line, similar to the Titans from a couple picks ago, where there's not too many offensive linemen that they can't then go and take with their second-round pick. I think adding a receiver there, now, I mean, that offense becomes extremely deadly at that point.
Yeah.
Sorry. Once when they address the offensive line. Moving up next to the AFC conference runner-ups, Kansas City Chiefs. This is at the point of the draft where like they can go multiple different ways. They can maybe add an offensive weapon. They can maybe add some offensive line members. But I think really addressing the secondary, Tyrann Mathieu is getting a little bit older as well. Still a solid, still one of the better safeties in the league, in my opinion. But I do think that they need to add that secondary, especially with how explosive a lot of these AFC teams are getting. And adding Daxton Hill, the safety from Michigan, I think is going to be a solid pick here. I think he can come in and provide valuable minutes from the get-go, especially good value here with the 30th pick overall.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I think that is a great pick because I actually think Tyrann Mathieu might be a free agent and he might not be coming back to the team. So I think that is a great pick. They need secondary help, as we saw in the AFC Championship game. Actually, even in the AFC divisional round against the Buffalo Bills, they need some people on that backside to really cover up some of those receivers. Up next with the second to last pick in the first round is the Cincinnati Bengals. So this pick might be unpopular. However, even though I would really like to take an offensive lineman, there's really not anybody that I'm super sold on that I think deserves to be a first-round pick, except for Jermaine Johnson, the edge rusher out of Florida State. I think him and Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard will create a fantastic trio. They'll be able to keep each other fresh throughout the year. And then you also have who's the other guy on the interior? Is it DJ Reader?
Yeah, there's the one guy. I think he broke his foot or something in one of the playoff games. But oh crap, I'm blanking on his name. But yeah, he had 7 sacks on the year. I mean, like they had one of the best defensive fronts in the league.
And I think Jermaine Johnson just really completes that front seven with. Then you have Logan Wilson and those guys. And there's not really any corners that I would really like to take here. But I think Jermaine Johnson is just a really solid pick. I think he's the best player left for the first round.
Yeah, this is kind of that spot. If a couple players fall, especially offensive linemen, I would highly take them. Like if Zion Johnson falls, but with Buffalo taking him, then Trevor Penning might be another one. But the Raiders are taking him as well. But yeah, I think both even making that defensive line that much better and tough to play against would be a great addition. And then moving on now to Mr. Irrelevant of the first round, the Detroit Lions, thanks to the Matt Stafford trade, which highly paid off for the Rams. They have the last pick thanks to that, and they are picking 2 picks from now in the second pick in the second round. So a lot of different ways. I do think like adding a receiver would be great to go along, go on the opposite side of Amon-Ra St. Brown or another potential offensive lineman. But as we said, this hasn't really just how the draft has panned out. I think they're going to double up on edge rushers and give Aiden Hutchinson another running mate. I think they're going to go with Trayvon Walker. I think he would be a great fit, and I think the combination of the two of Aiden Hutchinson and Trayvon Walker would be a solid addition.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a really good pick. Also, too, Trey Flowers. I'm not sure if he's a free agent this year or next year, but that would definitely give them a good succession plan for Trey Flowers because I think Trayvon Walker is a good. Trayvon Walker and Trey Flowers are a good comparison.
Yeah.
But I think all in all, I think we did pretty good, Tyler, on our first mock draft for the 2022
I would say so.
season. I think a lot of teams got good players that can help them. Sadly, the Cowboys cannot draft a new coach, but well, I shouldn't say sadly, but
yeah, I guess it depends on who. If you're
yeah.
playing against someone, you can always count on a poor time management game by Mike McCarthy. But exactly. Doing this one, so this is the first one I think of 3 or 4 that we're doing, and it's funny. We've talked about this off air, but just really my thoughts on this draft is like last year's draft. I was just like, you'd have these like I would say face of the franchise picks. You know, all these quarterbacks that are taking star receivers, skill position players. You know, this is the draft that is going to win you Super Bowls because it is a lot of in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line picks, a lot of secondary picks, linebacker picks. I think skill position wise, we only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 offensive skill position, okay, with 2 quarterbacks and 4 receivers. Last year, I think.
Yeah.
I think
we had that in the first round, pretty much.
Oh,
actually, not pretty much.
No. Well, no. In our first round, there were 6.
Picks. In the first 10.
In the first 10 picks, yeah, there were 6. There were 3 quarterbacks, and then 3 receivers. No, 2 receivers. Devontae Smith was 11th. Oh. Yeah.
Top 12, then we were definitely.
Yeah. And then Mac Jones was 15th.
15.
Yeah. So, like, it is this draft is going to be very interesting. I could see the only for certain thing is I would say Evan Neal is for certain going to go in the top 3. I don't see how he gets past Houston. Like if Evan Neal is sitting there, that's the only for certain thing. I can see Aiden Hutchinson falling. I can see maybe Kayvon Thibodeau.
I don't see Aiden Hutchinson falling. I see Kayvon Thibodeau falling.
Well,
I mean, there's a lot of scenarios here because if in a draft like this, if one team falls in love with Devin Lloyd, they could take him in the top 10. If one team falls in love with David Ajabo, they could take him in the top 10.
Sorry,
even a guy like Treylon Burks, like anybody could go anywhere. And then you could also see a run on corners or a run on receivers.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like David Bell could come into play in the first round. So it's just kind of one of those things.
And by me falling, I meant similar to falling as in like what Kyle Hamilton did here for us. We're falling to the 7th pick, whereas like I can't pass up on it.
Yeah. But I think even then, Kyle Hamilton's a safety. I mean, I've seen some people mock him at like 14.
I know, yeah. That's what's crazy about it. So it's going to be really fun to watch and to really then see the ramifications of this draft 5-10 years from now. See who is still playing and who is a potential Hall of Famer.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But I think for now, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Tracy Take. So if you have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. And I think other than that, we will see you guys next time.